Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we sit down with Alex Boyce. Alex is a wonderful millennial magician who does magic a little bit differently. Usually, young magicians do a newer style of magic, but not Alex. Alex focuses on the old schools and the classics of magic. And in this episode, you're going to learn why he does that and what you can do to make your magic special and fun for yourself and for your viewers. This was a wonderful episode, incredibly informative to hear about how Alex has grown through magic and how he has learned through specific mentors. I loved it, and I think you will too. Here it is, a wonderful time with the one and only Alex Boyce. So let's start at the very beginning and let's maybe figure out how we got there. How did you get into magic?
I grew up in upstate New York, and I saw World's Greatest Magic 5 when I was about 4 years old. It was late at night on a big box TV. I definitely remember there was like the images that really stuck with me. There was a sword through a neck without any sort of frame. That was really something that I remembered. And I just was super excited. My parents could see I was really excited. And my mom knew an art teacher who did a little bit of magic and was a member of the local IBM ring. And she gave me a color-changing silks through the hand. But I had some magic kits at that point, but she told me that this was a professional's trick. You know, even though now we all know that that's a trick that comes in many beginners kits. I didn't have that. And so since she said it was a professional's trick, that really got me excited, and that was the beginning.
Wow, an exciting beginning, and I'm always interested when it's a piece of media that gets someone into magic instead of I was at this magic shop or I met this person, or it's just very exciting if it's a piece of media, because sometimes, we think about some of the media that we see now and who that might inspire in the future. Help me with kind of the next few steps of the journey. I think that one thing I'm always very curious about is I think any magician who wants to take magic seriously as either a career or just a serious role in their life, there's some moments where they have to make decisions between doing something or doing magic. So I know that you went to school for theater to kind of accent your magic. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Did you know you were going to go towards magic? Tell me about how you moved forward in the world of magic.
Yeah, growing up, magic became a really big part of my life, and especially in the summers, the conventions and Tannen's Magic Camp. I remember being 11, and in the town I grew up in, it wasn't really big, and so I was the only kid magician anyone had ever seen. So they were amazed and very complimentary. So I thought I was really good. And I remember going to camp at 11 and being in the competition with a James Bond themed act where I made a Rocky Raccoon disappear in a flip over box, and I thought it was really great, and I didn't even make it into the finals. And I had this, awakening experience at that age of 11, realizing that I wasn't quite as good as I thought I was. Then year to year, I started going to conventions with people, and that became more and more of a focus. And all the while I was doing a lot of acting in an off-Broadway style theater that was in upstate, and decided that I wanted to study acting, both as just a way to study it on its own and also as a way to enhance my understanding of performance in general, including magic. And so I went to NYU and the Tisch School, and specifically within the Tisch School, the Stella Adler program, which is its own conservatory within the program that's an acting school.
So help me understand a little bit of the mindset, because I guess I presuppose that you were, going to accent, your magic, and help me understand, as somebody going to school for acting, what did you think about your future?
If I had to say, there was a specific goal in mind, I thought someone's career that was a good mark point to try to emulate in a way was Ricky Jay, in that there was his ability to do really high quality work, both in acting and magic performances and historical writing and TV. And he was really able to do all of those things. And I just thought that I liked the diversity of work, and I liked doing all of those things. And so studying acting seemed to be a good way because it wasn't just the acting school. I didn't want to go into a conservatory program that was just going to be voice and speech and movement and Shakespeare. I really wanted to go to a college program where I would be studying all of those things along with film and TV and production and business. And so that was the idea. And all along through that, being in New York was really important to me. All the schools I looked at were in New York. And so through that, I was already here and started performing on shows. And that was during those 4 years.
Let's talk a little bit about the style of magic that you do. I think that was a really interesting moment that you shared, that you performed at the Tannins show and you didn't even place, and with an act that I don't want to say that it's silly, but I certainly will say that it sounds silly compared to the stuff that you're known for doing right now, which I wouldn't imagine a raccoon in a box or anything. Maybe you do, I'm not sure. So talk to me a little bit about that kind of awakening and how that's informed the way that you do your magic.
Yeah, it was through an experience of just consuming a lot of magic and being able to go online all the time and see stuff on YouTube and just tons and tons and tons and tons of magic videos and live performances. I got really interested separately just in the Rat Pack and Mad Men and all of that kind of style and genre of an era. But I was not really interested in being like a throwback act either. I liked being myself and existing here in present day. So the magic I became more and more interested in through teachers and mentors became the work of, Vernon and Miller and all that kind of stuff. And that came through some very specific mentors like Johnny Thompson and Paul Vigil. And I've always really valued real mentorship and teaching. So I put a lot of time and effort into creating those opportunities for myself. And all the while doing a bird act, which as a kid, a lot of people were kind of telling me, older magicians, that, there wasn't a place to work with this kind of thing. And just a lot harder than it's worth. And both of those things were true and then became not true. And it really worked out.
I love the tendency towards some older magic or classics of magic. And you said that it was because of working with Johnny Thompson and working with Paul Vigil, or at least with them as mentors. Can you talk a little bit about what in those conversations or what in that has tended you towards classics of magic and not towards other things?
Sure. Well, my relationship as a student with Johnny especially and Paul as well, both of them become real teachers, but there was different relationships, were that really as learning the repertoire. So it's very rarely been a relationship where especially with John, I never came to him with something and that was the thing that started it. I came to him once and said, here's something I'm working on. And that was what began the relationship. But otherwise, it was always learning his repertoire and sitting and taking in all the notes and stuff. And I'm really grateful as a student that so much of it's in the books and it's really out there for everybody to enjoy and use. And the same thing with Paul. It was really, Johnny introduced me to Paul, and a lot of that came from, again, not so much, hey, a jamming or showing, hey, here's something I'm working on and what do you think of this? But really him learning his repertoire. That's interesting. Is that something that you think is like, because you don't see that happening, all that much.
It's funny, Paul stayed at my house for a few days and he said something amazing, which I loved. He said, he had his briefcase and he said, all the magic that I do is inside of this briefcase. I thought that was wonderful. And what you're explaining, now that I think about it, is a lot of the ways that, I watched him do his act and we learned and we talked about his pieces of magic. And I think that that's a much different education than when people talk about jamming. Can you talk a little bit about that?
To me, it was really informative. I don't do every trick that either of them taught me. And I've had a lot of other mentors and teachers over the years, especially through Tannins Camp, where I've been there every year since I was 11. That first year, that hooked me in. And so I was a camper and now I'm part of the team behind it. And so there's so many people between Michael Carbonaro and Costa Kimlat, lots of great people who come every year and teach things. But specific to Johnny and Paul, again, I don't do all the tricks, but you really learn why they're doing it and why it's a great thing. For instance, balls and net was something that I had learned from Johnny. I had seen him perform it live, and I can do it. I have performed it. I could do it right now. I don't know if it's right for me. I don't know if it's the right trick for me. I think it's a bit long for how much the actual magic moments that you get out of it. And if you only have so much time on stage, is that the trick that you want to be doing? Maybe not for me. But I think the real takeaway for me is the stage picture. That picture, the two people on both sides of you holding that cloth, that is so great. And that's something I really value. And so finding another routine maybe that creates a similar image is something that resonates with me. So there's all these little lessons that you take away as a student of magic.
When I think about that, when I think about Johnny, I think about the act, the Thompsoni act, that, more or less the same act that's been going on for a very long time. And, echoing the thing that I said about Paul, where he's like, all the magic I do lives inside of this briefcase. I think there's a certain, I don't know. I feel like different magicians add different magic. I often hear beginner magicians say to me, like, I've finished writing my first show and I'm halfway through my second show, and now I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna start showing the magic to people. And to me, and I giggle, I chuckle to myself because I've been doing the same 3 tricks for however long over and over again. I'm like, wow, now I'm finally going to figure out how I can add a 4th. And I'm being a little bit silly about it, but I'd love to hear your take on this concept of having the same 15 minutes or having the same 20 minutes that you're doing over and over again versus, having whatever it is, 50 pieces or something like that. Do you think it's possible now to survive on, the 20 minutes in different places like you could in?
Absolutely not, right? That doesn't exist. That was created for a form of entertainment that has leftovers still, but as a full career where you could get booked on the Keith circuit or the Orpheum circuit, that would be a contract and you'd be working, for months and months and months. So no, that doesn't exist anymore. That's not to say it's not a worthwhile pursuit. So for me, for instance, I, have a 10-minute silent act that I can work a lot with in New York City, doing New York's nightlife shows and corporate work and private shows and kind of all those things together. But if I were to do that just alone, I don't know if that would make a career. But to then do close-up magic and consulting and 30-minute shows and trade shows and kind of all those things combined is what makes a career in magic.
I guess maybe the interesting thing there is that it's an act. It's okay, this is my silent act and it can be placed in many different places. This is my close-up act and it can be placed in many different places. I don't know that everybody builds their magic in that way, whereas here's my 15 minutes and it can be done in many different places.
Yeah, and maybe the takeaway or a lesson that I've learned from it is to say, like, especially if I'm doing a 30-minute show, my 12-minute close-up set is going to have the same beginning and end as the 30-minute close-up set. And so whatever structure and lessons that you learn and that you build, don't lock yourself into that, but use those things so then you're able to just create more pieces and be adaptable.
I want to talk a little bit more about physical props. I think that it's challenging, or I've struggled when doing magic on stage and in parlor settings, to get away from cards and to get away from mentalism and actually have objects and props and things. And, so I see a lot of your magic uses stuff, different actual objects, maybe a bottle, maybe, could be a bird, could be balls, could be silks. Talk to me about this idea of using physical props. Is it something that's important to you or just something that's hidden in the classics?
I think, part of it is easy. If you go to the classics of magic, those things will just fall into place and you don't have to worry about it. I've put a value on different stage pictures and images. That to me is, like I said, important. I've never had a goal of, what are some interesting props that I could use? But it's really to satisfy the goal of creating interesting magic, which sometimes can use unique pieces and wanting to have different props, which is just, again, to satisfy the other goal. So for instance, the bottle, to me, the reason I like coin and bottle on stage is because you get the guy in the chair and you have him facing the audience and you have him hold the bottle right in front of his face. And then the coin goes through, and that moment where the coin's in the bottle and the audience can see the coin in the bottle and they can see his face and they can see me behind him in one frame, that's really exciting to me. So it has to be a great trick. It has to be a really, really great trick, which all those things are examined and then they all go home with him. So it's a great trick. Then it has to be a really cool looking thing. Nothing else in my show is going to look exactly like that. And it's a memorable moment. So the interesting prop comes from those choices.
I think that's a great way to explain it. I think that idea of figuring out the frame of the effect or the frame of that moment is a really key thing to, I think, hone in on for those memorable moments or images or snapshots that people get in their mind when they think back to a show. I want to talk a little bit about magic style. I know we've been chatting about using props and we've been chatting about doing maybe an older style of magic or classics of magic. I think that the magic that you do is different than the magic that other people your age do. And I think you do it in a lot of your copy on your website and in many places you're sharing that, you know, it's the classics of magic with a millennial take. What do you think is different? Do you think that young magicians now are doing something wrong, or is there anything in that sort, or you're just following the things that excite you?
Yeah, I would say it's just me. If any, I really think, people should do exactly what they want to do. I see a lot of people doing other kinds of magic, and that's really great. And at this point, with my experience, I look to other people for their advice, and I'm not in that position to be giving that kind of advice. So for me, it's just about finding the things that I like. And so for close-up magic, I just realized that the kind of close-up magic that I liked a lot was sitting at a table and having that kind of a show. And so that's the kind of magic that I started to work on. And as you do it, you get better at it. And then so it just heightens your insights or your instincts even more. It's the same thing with the bird act. It was just, I just liked seeing the bird appear on stage. And I thought that was really cool. And I liked I liked a lot of it. I kind of fell in love with so much of it. And you begin trying to figure out how to solve problems, and then you get better at it, and then you just do it more and more. And so that's how it ended up being that way. I do try to make them aware that what I'm doing is unique, and it's not because I'm inventing magic or that I'm a particularly unique performer, although I have invented some magic and I'd like to think I'm a unique performer. But you just try to emphasize all of your qualities.
Why do you think that not as many young magicians are doing classics of magic?
I think part of it is just what you consume, what's exciting. So if you got into magic because you saw David Blaine's special, and that's the first thing that really resonates with you, I would imagine that at least at first, that's the path you take. We also start to see, who's getting booked on conventions and who's around and what kind of relationships you can form and what do you have access to. It's not maybe so easy to access what's great about a classic of magic. But in a way, I do find a lot of people are doing classic magic. I think a lot of people do routines from Stars of Magic even. Maybe they didn't learn it from Stars of Magic. And so they don't put it together all that they're doing a classic of magic. But anytime anybody does coins through table or coins across or ambitious card or cups and balls or a variation thereof or chop cup, I think a lot of people do classic magic, but maybe they just don't realize it.
I think that's a really good point that, many of us don't realize it. I don't know. I guess in my head, I think of classics of magic as the classics of magic that we don't see, but obviously that's not true, right? There's so many that have actually become quite common things, like you said.
What's amazing was I love reading old magic magazines. I think they're endlessly fascinating. And I think one of the best things you can do with your money is $35 a year or something for a Genie online. It's all searchable. I go through that all the time. I don't remember when this was, but I was reading this the other day. There was a time in which someone was lamenting the fact that everybody used to do the egg bag and then nobody's doing the egg bag anymore. And they were like, man, if people only knew how great the egg bag was, everybody'd be doing it. And now we're back at a time where everybody's doing the egg bag again. And again, it's classics of magic. And really, for me, it just comes from a personal taste of my choice of like, both from the method side of things and the effect side of things, what I like to do, what I like the magic to look like, what I like them to feel and experience. Classics are really, really great because they exist not so much in a time or space. It allows you to create a real moment of magic, I think, that the focus is on the experience of magic and not on a toy or a gizmo or something that detracts from that, right? Because anything that is left over, you're going through your editing process, and anything that gets left over that's not celebrating whatever your goal is detracts from it. So that's why I gravitate towards it.
I want to talk a little bit about age. If somebody goes through your social media or website, and we'll talk about in a moment, but I think it's, you've worked for some amazing clients, done magic for some incredible people, and you seem pretty young for someone to have been able to do those things. If someone was watching you, if somebody was your age and they were asking themselves like, my goodness, how on earth could that be happening? Like, how could usually somebody is like, have to be doing this for 30 years or whatever, whatever stories they tell themselves. Why do you think that is? How do you think for somebody so young, you've been able to move forward so quickly?
My main focus has always been on doing what I wanted to do, doing a great thing, and then making sure people are aware of it. And really from the business side of things, because I know some other people who have given me the advice to say, just get good, just get really, really good, and then the business stuff will all take care of itself. And in a way that is true, but maybe that falls apart a little bit like right now in a pandemic, where if you think, like I kind of thought like, wow, I'm really in a good position where I'm doing these kinds of events and doing this kind of work, and they're totally separate, doing this consulting thing and doing this performance thing and this close-up thing. And like if one of these clients were to disappear, I'd be totally okay because I've got this rest of my 80% of my business or something, and everything else falls apart. So if you just focus on your business and you don't worry about the performance side of things, well, then when you show up to the gig and it's not great, you're not going to get any other work out of it. Also, why are you doing it in the first place? But so for me, it's always just been about do something really interesting and try to make it cool. And I try to make work that's interesting for me to do because I've got to be there for every show and hope that other people like it. And then part of it is just being in New York too. Like I don't know if I could do what I've been doing in any other place.
So let's talk. I want to chat about what it's like in New York, but I want to talk a little bit about the business. So we've said there's the show, there's the business. You kind of have to focus on both. Let's talk about the business. How did you get in front of clients with gargantuan names? Obviously it's, you don't get to say like, oh, it was just this. I met old Greg and Greg introduced me to them. Obviously it's a slow, gradual thing, but where does it, if somebody was to say to you, like, where does it come from? Why is someone doing shows for C clients, someone doing shows for B clients, and someone doing shows for A clients? What's the difference?
I think on some level, it's really just about getting out there and performing a lot. Not only does it make you better, but that's how people see you and start to hear about you and you get recommendations. And for me, it's always been about the long game. It's really, really got to be about the long game and not really worrying about what other people are doing, other people performing magicians. I try to have diversity in how my work comes through. This last 2 years, I've put a lot of work into the website, both on design and SEO, and invested money hiring people and doing it myself in a combination of, so that there's some work that people can find me without having ever seen me before. That was a goal. That started to happen, and that was really great. So I'm excited that that's working. There's other work that comes through bookers who, when they get a call, they say, oh, I think that this is a great magician. We want to have a magician. They say, okay, I think this is the right fit. They pitch me to the client, and then that happens. Another bucket would be the end client is the relationship. Someone that's seen me perform somewhere, or that's really where that would come from, right? Someone who's seen me perform somewhere at an event that I had already been booked for. Because if it's someone that sees me at an event that the booker has created, then that's that booker's client, and that relationship's going to go through there. I try to have these three buckets, make sure again that they're all kind of working, and that way if one thing starts to diminish or fall through, then the other things can compensate. And I just love performing. I love performing magic, and so I want to do it a lot. I want to be able to focus on it, and so that's the kind of opportunities that you can create for yourself. New York is a city where you can perform for the public a lot. I'm in the show called Speakeasy Magic, where we were doing 5 shows a week pre-pandemic, and I'm really looking forward to that reopening when it's safe to do so. But even beyond that, there's a lot of opportunities to perform magic in New York that people can just see you.
Let's talk about New York, because I think people think of what you can do with stand-up comedy. If you know a great stand-up comedian there, in a night they might do 4 spots or 5 spots, but it's actually has that kind of thing for magic. There's always, every night, multiple magic shows going on, multiple magic variety shows going on, and magic experiences and all of that. Obviously, we're talking pre-pandemic. And I think, obviously, as a place to perform, it's wonderful, but also, New York is amazing for all of its wonderful reasons. Talk a little bit about the New York magic scene and how that plays a role in your growth.
I think it's great. Right away, my freshman year, I had an audition for Monday Night Magic and started doing an opening slot, and then was doing that for a while, about once a month, all through college. And at some point decided that I'd always been doing close-up magic, but want to be doing close-up magic there. And they don't just say, okay, you're already performing, go for it. They make you audition for every position. So even though I'm on the stage show, they had me audition for the close-up show. I auditioned 4 times before they let me in. And it wasn't a slight either, because I was looking around at the other people that they were having audition over and over again and being impressed by their work. And so that was really happening. As a community, I think it's really exciting place. It's really, really, I think there's a lot of great high quality magicians in New York. A lot of really good close-up magic happening, and people that are both known to the magicians of the world and people that aren't known who do really great things, and a lot of great mentors and young people. And I think it's a really vibrant community right now.
There's something you said there about auditioning for the different roles at Monday Night Magic, and you also shared, the awakening of trying to perform, back when you were 11. What was coming to my mind is this idea of exclusive communities that aren't exclusive behind, like, you can't play with us because you're not from here or you don't do this or anything, but it's exclusive to be a part of because it's hard, and you have to, like, the amount of magicians, just to talk, about the Magic Castle as another example, the amount of magicians who have got better in order to perform at the castle, and who have resubmitted and worked harder in their act and resubmitted, and and I'm seeing that thing similarly. So I'd love to hear you chat a little bit about that process. Do you think that some of that, like, competitive nature or what audition, something like that, plays a role?
I'm not really sure about magic competitions as a whole. I kind of stopped doing that when I was still, in my late teens, because I didn't find that to be particularly right for me. But dates, how many people have you heard say, like, having some sort of deadline is just get you going? I just really, really value mentorship and experience. And so getting that kind of advice and feedback, I don't take all of it, but if you listen to it, it seems to go a long way. I've really found that in my relationships with a lot of people is what seems to go a really long way with people, with magicians in particular, is really listening, really trying to listen well, And then, especially if somebody gives you something in confidence, really knowing how to maintain that trust. And I've had people come to me who I really admire and look up to because they know that I can keep my mouth shut when it's important, when there's something secret going on, and also try to contribute something with a knowledge base.
And it's funny that you mentioned secrecy, because right now in Magic, I think that it seems as if secrecy plays a less and less important role. You can buy any books anywhere. You can access any things on YouTube and on anything like that. Talk to me about secrecy. Where is it so important to keep your mouth shut in Magic? Because right now, for me personally, I don't find there to be that many opportunities in my day-to-day life where me keeping my mouth shut plays a role in very much.
For me, it's been about when people have approached me to do something and they say, hey, this is a project that I'm working on. I don't really want anybody to know about it just yet. That's an opportunity to show you're trustworthy. And another one is when work is unpublished, to really respect that. And really what it comes down to, I think, is just respecting the parameters of whatever the person sharing the information with you has said. And so if they've set parameters that, I want to share this with you, but I don't even want you to perform it, then you have to respect those parameters. Or if they say perform this everywhere, but don't tell anybody about it, just respecting what everybody shares with you seems to just go a really long way with people. People like to be respected. That's really all it is.
I know you spoke a little bit about Monday Night Magic. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about Speakeasy Magic, what that experience is like, what that is like.
The show is unique. I can say that. The show is unique. It takes place at the McKittrick Hotel in New York, which is known for its show Sleep No More. And it's produced by the people behind Sleep No More. It's in that venue. And it happens in a cabaret, in a smoky cabaret, and you walk in and someone playing jazz piano, and you get seated at a table, and there's an empty chair at your table. And Todd Robbins, who both co-created the show with the producers and is really the mastermind behind the project, behind the show, welcomes everybody. And then surprises start to happen. I can say that there's magic that happens on stage, there's magic that happens at the tables, but really it's an immersive experience, and it's a magic show with kind of an Ocean's 11 of magicians. There's each time you come, there's magicians there, and it operates differently than a lot of the other magic shows that are popping up around the country, in that it's not a magic venue that's booking magicians. It's a show with an existing cast that sometimes has people rotate in and out, but really is a show that people come and see.
It's amazing, all these incredible interactive experiences. And now, we're talking a lot about New York, and I think so many incredible big cities have gone on pause, and people have had to learn how to create interactive experiences that happen virtually. So before we wrap up this episode, I'd love to hear about your transition into the world of virtual, especially in reference to the magic itself. So how has the change to the world of virtual been?
So my virtual experiences have been very specific. It came out of a client reaching out and saying, hey, we're having a party. On Zoom, would you do some magic on it? And I hadn't done anything yet. And I realized that, this is a great relationship that I have. And, instead of turning this down, maybe we can turn this into something. And so that's when I started to work on it. The goals have been very specific to whatever the client's needs have been. So I have seen some Zoom shows that have been for the public and think they're really cool and exciting. For me, what I've been doing is really taking each client basis by basis and saying, who is this show for? What are you trying to accomplish? And so if it's a client relationship, I'm really trying to integrate, not just having a good time, but trying to integrate my client to their clients so that they have a relationship building experience, not just a magic show. So the magic that I'm doing, I would say I experimented a little bit. I found that having something that brings as many people involved as possible is great, not necessarily in one moment, but throughout the show. Just letting people know that this is like a live thing. It's not a video. It's not something that I really am satisfied doing though. I enjoy doing it for the goal of doing a great virtual show, but it's not something that I ever got into magic for, right? No one ever got into magic to be a virtual magician because it didn't exist yet. I know the reasons that I'm doing it, mainly which is to, solve these existing problems for my clients and make new relationships and try to create a great experience. But I'm not finding it particularly satisfying as a magician or as a performer. But I enjoy the challenges. I enjoy the creative problem solution, creative problem solving and bringing joy to people and entertainment. But I don't think, to me, it's when you get on stage and people are clapping for you and stuff, like that's an intense feeling. And I really chase after that. And I'd say that if I look for anything in life, it's adventures and some sort of satisfaction. I like, having a satisfying experience. And when you walk off stage and people are having like a really visceral experience, that's what I go for.
It's a great discerning between the worlds of virtual and not. And the other thing that I want to say, in positive to virtual that you referenced is that you can make something really custom. We have every book that we own at our disposals. We have every prop at our disposals. We have every, in one of our shows, because someone mentioned it, we just did a costume change while a scene was doing something else. And we can do it. We have everything we own in our house, every gimmick, every trick, every prop, everything. So it's certainly amazing that we can at least do interesting custom out of the box experiences for people instead of saying that, all our virtual shows are exactly the same. And I really, really love that aspect of what you said.
Yeah, that's really cool with the costume change. That's fun.
And it was only because they brought it up, and we don't still have costume changes in our show, but we just did it that one moment. And we do other fun, ridiculous things that we can, because everything we've ever owned in magic is at our disposal. Amazing. So as we are nearing the end of the episode, there are a few wrap-up questions that we ask each and every magician. The first is the endless chain. So in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that would be a wonderful guest on the show. So who would be a wonderful addition to the Discourse in Magic?
I think Todd Robbins would be a great.
Perfect. Wonderful. Todd Robbins is a phenomenal recommendation. The next one is about modern magic. So a lot has changed in the last 8 months or 12 months, whatever, in the world of magic. What is one thing you like about the world of modern magic and one thing you don't like about the world of modern magic?
I really love that there is such an ability to connect with people in magic across age and experience. I've gotten so much out of the relationships that I have with people who are 50 years older than me, and the people that I saw on that first TV special when I was 4 years old. Those opportunities to have those relationships have changed my life, and they've made it so much more enjoyable to be part of magic. I really think that community is what I so enjoy beyond the actual performance of magic. And so I think we're in a really good place with the community.
Is there something you don't like?
Is there something that I don't like in magic right now? Yeah, there's a lot of tricks that I think are bad. I think the way that the back end of the marketplace is designed puts the goals in the wrong places. And so I think it makes for products for magicians that might not be as good as they should be, because that's where the incentives are.
The next thing is plugs. Where can people find you, follow you, and check out your stuff?
So my website's my last name, magic.com. It's Boyce, Boyce, magic.com. And I'm on Instagram, and I'm active there at Boyce Alex.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And by the way, your website and your Instagram both look phenomenal. So congrats on making them look so sharp. And the last thing that I want to ask is about the take home point. People have been listening to us chat about magic for quite some time now, and they've learned a lot. But if there's one thing when they think back to this episode that you want them to remember, the most important thing, what would that one thing be?
I want them to remember that the same way that I've been able to reach out to so many people and create relationships, I hope that they would reach out to me and create relationships too. Because, like I said, I really get so much out of the relationships in magic that I have.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As always, ask yourself if somebody would like to hear this stuff. If you think this stuff is important for somebody else to hear, then please share it with them. Spread the word. Tell a friend. It means the world. Thank you so much for being here. Love to see you or hear you. I'll see you next Thursday. Peace.